It's Reija and welcome to another video. Today I'm here with something completely different. This is going to be a collaboration video with a bunch of other booktubers, and we are going to be talking about our shared love of libraries. And what better way to start talking about love of libraries than reminiscing about our fondest memories relating to libraries. So without further ado, I will let all my lovely collaborators talk about their memories first, and then I will close out the video. I hope you enjoy.
My fondest memory of going to the library was when I used to visit Atlantic City. I spent almost all my summers in Atlantic City and in Orlando, and my mom used to work at the library in Atlantic City, and she would always take us there and tell us stories about when she used to work there. And the library was like the coolest library I've ever seen, because in Puerto Rico libraries tend to be very small, or at least the ones that I knew when I was there. So it was a great experience just being there with my mom and hearing her stories and just walking around in the hallways and going to the second floor. Like, they had a second floor. That was a big deal. I loved the library in Atlantic City. And since they knew us, or they knew my mom, they let us have a library card even though we didn't live in Atlantic City. And it was really cool. I really, really loved going to the library there. And they had a really good selection. And I love to read, so, you know.
Hi guys, I'm Anita from Anita Reads. And my answer to this question is, I always used to go to the libraries as a kid growing up, but I don't have any specific memories where I was like, oh yeah, this happened. My fondest memories is just being there, trying to look through comics, spending my Saturday mornings at the library with my parents as they were finding books, and I was just playing around in the kids section and trying to find different audiobooks or comic books that I could listen to and read as the week went on. I think we went there like every 2 weeks or so. Maybe it was only once a month, but I feel like we were there very often. So yeah, I don't have a specific memory exactly, except that I just spent a lot of time there and I remember it.
Hi, I'm Lucie and my channel is Lucie Reads. So my fondest memory of going to the library, there's no one memory. I just have like a bunch of my memories like mashed together, because going to the library was such a regular thing for me when I was a kid. I just have like my memories of going to the library with my dad, and he would be sitting at one of those tiny tables in the children's section with his own book, while I'm like running around grabbing as many books as I can find and like stacking them in front of him. And like I would just like grab like 15 books at a time. Like that's how many books I would take out of the library. And just like I just remember going with him and like doing all that, and like the massive amounts of books that I would take, and like my dad never saying anything basically, and just being like, okay, this is what you want.
I have a lot of fond memories of visiting the small library in my hometown, where I always borrowed a huge stack of books and I couldn't wait to get back home and start reading. But the best thing that recently happened to me in the library was a librarian who asked about the book I was returning, because he was really interested in reading it. And I was surprised, because librarians usually don't say anything about the books, but I definitely appreciated this little interaction.
Hi, I'm Kelsey. My channel is The Fancy Hat Lady Reads. I'm wearing one of my fancy booktube hats, and one of my fondest memories of a library is when I got my New York Public Library card when I moved to New York for college as a freshman. Like fall semester, it was one of the first things that I did in the city. I had, of course, had library cards growing up, but this was the first time I had to figure out how to make that happen for myself. And it just felt like a major, you know, adulting moment in my young life. And I needed that library card because my college's library was like a sad excuse for a library. And I used the NYPL for the majority of my college research.
One of my fondest memories that was in a library was a couple years ago. I now live in Toronto, and I live near the University of Toronto campus. And on the campus there is a rare books library, and that year they had acquired a original copy of Shakespeare's First Folio, and they had it on display. And it was one of the coolest things for me, because I've always really liked Shakespeare. I've been in Shakespeare plays, I've read many plays, And just being able to see an original copy of that folio was just amazing, and I'll never forget it. And that's all I have to say.
My fondest memory of visiting a library was when I was 4 or 5 years old, and my dad went back to school to get a degree. And we moved from the Hodunk to the comparatively big city living of Madison, Wisconsin. And we had a very small local library when I was very young, but I remember the first time that I went to the Memorial Library on UW campus, which is the main college library, so it has a huge selection of both fiction books as well as textbooks. And I remember it vividly because I was overwhelmed by how big it was and how many books there were. I didn't even know that that many books existed in the whole entire world, and then here they were just right in front of me.
I think my fondest memory of visiting a library is probably when I would go there as a child. My mother would bring me there about once a week because I would read through about a stack of 5 or 6 books. But I think my fondest memories of going there were when I was a kid and the summer reading programs were happening. I would finish through those so quickly, and it was always fun to talk to the librarians and say, hey, these are the books I read. Do you have any more recommendations for what I could read next?
Hi, I'm Chelsea at the Reading Outlaw, and my favorite library memory is probably the time that I was pouting and kind of flinging my way through the library because I had read all the books in the juvenile section that I wanted to read, and I was bored and I just felt so stuck. And the librarian grabbed me by the hand and she walked me like a couple yards away to the young adult section. And she pointed at like the spinner racks where the paperbacks were, and she showed me where the new books were and the magazines, and I was blown away because I didn't think I'd been allowed to go because it was for young adults and I was still a kid. And she explained to me that the library didn't work like that and it didn't have age limits like that, and I could go wherever I wanted. And that day my whole world just, the doors flew off and everything expanded, and I have always just been so in love with the library.
My fondest memory of using the library or visiting a library was when I was in university and we would go study medieval manuscripts and rare books at the Thomas Fisher Library in Toronto. It had some of the most amazing volumes, and just seeing parchment and the manuscripts and the ways monks would illustrate the medieval books, just everything about the library in itself, its layout, the lighting, and of course the librarians in it, just was so perfect that it remains my absolute fondest memory of any library I've ever walked in.
My fondest memory of going to a library is definitely the time when I got my very first own library card. Before I went to school, I was always borrowing books with my mother's library card. We would go to the library, my mom would set me and my siblings free to browse the stacks, and we would come to her with our own stack of books, and she would borrow them with her own library card. But when I was going to elementary school, I finally got my very first, my very own personal library card. We went to the library, I got to fill out the forms myself, and it was like reaching a stage of independence in my childhood life, and I loved that. I still remember that day fondly. And there you have it. This has been all of our favorite library memories. What are some of your favorite library memories? Care to share them in the comments. I hope you like this video, and please be sure to check out the rest of the videos in this series coming to you very soon. Bye bye!